I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk with folks from the VTuber community on their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. Well, this is a situation where I was kind of bopping around Twitch, and I landed on the channel of Lilaofthewind. And I said, wow. I said, I've got to get this person on. And here they are. Hi.
Hello, Eric.
Yeah, please introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, my name is Leela. I'm a black sheep VTuber, variety streamer, and YouTuber.
Yeah, and quite a talented person too. I was just taken in right away with how easily you were interacting with the chat, and it's quite an enjoyable experience.
Thank you. That's what matters most to me, really connecting with people on that one-on-one level for as long as I can, because sometimes when you go viral,
Mhm.
you can't do that as much, and I always get a little sad when that happens.
Yeah. It's almost like a loss of innocence, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes things a lot more complicated.
Mm. And you just kind of lose a little bit of control, of the control you have over a smaller group, but then it also shows how successful you are at the same time. Double-edged sword.
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people in VTubing struggle with. There is this inherent like balance you need to achieve, and if you're too much on one side or the other, it's going to be hard to enjoy that journey.
Yeah. Well, as you folks are noticing right now, Leela's got an incredible voice. And I got a chance, you pointed me out to a talk show you'd been doing, an interview show that you'd done a while back. Folks, you have to check it out. We're going to have all the links in the description for this interview. But heck, you're a natural.
Thank you. I was so proud of that concept. I feel like in VTubing, because it's so performance heavy,
Hmm.
there is such a pressure to be a certain way. And I was really curious about the humans behind these personas.
Hmm.
And so VTuber Night Live, which was the name of the show, I felt like we could really show the more human side of these creators
Hmm.
and give them space to maybe share more personal things like why did you become a VTuber? And how is who you are as a person in real life affecting who you are as a VTuber, the content you make. And that was so fun.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing that the number of different backgrounds everybody has. Everybody's got different stories, different talents, um, different hidden abilities they may not even know they had until they.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's an amazing. People say, why do you after doing all the radio? Why do you do this? I said, because it's an endless cornucopia of interest to me. Um, just too many people. And the fact, what I really liked about listening to it is that you were so easy and natural with the guests, um, just conversational, and that immediately breaks down any type of wall that they're putting up. So you get to the heart of the matter real quick.
Yes. I am an introvert naturally, and I actually suspect that I may be autistic. And I leverage that. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm an introvert, so that must mean I suck at socializing. But in my opinion, that's actually an advantage because it's not that you suck at socializing, it's that you really care about people at their core and you want to get to the heart of matters and really know people.
Hmm.
So, like, if you lean into that, you're actually very strong at socializing.
Yeah, you become automatically disarming, and that kind of presenting yourself kind of humbly in that way means that they don't have to defend against you. They're not throwing up a defense right
Hmm.
away, and you immediately start talking to instead of the character, the person, you talk not the character, the persona. You talk to the person, and it does make a great deal of difference. I really do hope that you find the time to get that going again. Um,
Me too, especially because I feel like at face value, a lot of people see VTubers as kind of the same. Like you'll hear this sentiment of like VTubers look the same and they act the same and they do the same trends.
mm,
But in reality, I just feel like a lot of people don't feel like they have the space to really be their more personal self.
Right.
And some people also may have issues with their personal self in real life, so they like to escape into a character, which can be fine.
Yeah.
But I feel like if we made that space to really be human, people would realize actually there's a lot more to these people than meets the eye.
Mm.
And they even realize in these interviews like, "Oh, I'm more than I thought."
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And they come out with ideas like, well, maybe I really can't do this. It does add a
Yeah.
little bit of wind under their wings a little bit, which is always good. But the fact that you're coming from the perspective that you are with these interviews, I'm coming from an outside perspective in. Now I know a lot more than I did a year ago when I got started, but my
Mhm.
perspective is going to be different than yours because you've been doing this for a while. So your questions are going to be coming from a different angle. That's what I like about a good interviewer is that they know they they ask the questions that haven't been asked before, but they're not threatening or
Mm.
scaring people off. I again
Yeah.
I really just hope you're able to do this because I'm excited to hear more from you with it. Um, and it's not only that, but I want to know how you got started in the first place. What brought you to this side of the deal?
That's an awesome question. Like a lot of VTubers, I was at a really low place
Mm.
and I needed a new purpose. For many years, I had been operating from the more conventional, like 9 to 5, go up the corporate ladder, do all these things you're supposed to do, and it wasn't working for me. And then I freelanced for a while and actually had a lot more success with that. But I still ended up burning out and feeling not fulfilled. And I had kind of exhausted the list of all the comfortable things I could do, the stuff that I felt naturally good at, and all I had left to try was all the stuff that I was afraid of. So I was like, you know what? I am an introvert. I'm really shy. I have social anxiety. I'm going to be a VTuber. And every stream is going to be like a challenge to face those fears, but also like have those people alongside me and build that community. And it very naturally took on a life of its own that I wasn't even anticipating. I
Well,
was just like, I want to have purpose. I want to have something to get up
yeah,
and do every day and feel proud of and know I did something.
yeah, and not only that, but you also become a part of their lives too.
Yes. And yeah, they become a part of yours.
Yeah.
I actually feel like so much of who I am today wasn't just that drive to self develop, but like hearing along the way feedback about what I'm good about,
Mm.
what I'm good with that I didn't think that I was necessarily good at. Like, I feel like a lot of VTubers underestimate themselves
Oh
and
yeah.
they're really hard on themselves. But when we have our audience giving us feedback in real time, that's actually a really great way to know who are you really versus the image of yourself that you may have in your head.
Yeah. 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 And I think that almost to a T, the VTubers that I've talked to all as you said, underestimate themselves. Now, there's been one or two that might have overestimated themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no names, but again, they're having fun, and the people who are listening and watching are having fun too. You've become with if you're following, you kind of do you get that responsibility to go on with and talk with them and do you feel responsible for their enjoyment?
Yes, although I would say I used to feel that so much. Right after I started VTubing and I popped off for the first time, I felt this weight of not expectation, but I know that a lot of people that watch VTubers watch them because there may be something lacking in their real life and they get what they do need from VTubing. And I felt like, especially when it comes to mental health, that's
Mm,
such a big thing
right.
in the VTuber sphere for creators and viewers. I wanted to care about mental health, but in the beginning I was caring a little too much and taking too much responsibility. And I've had to learn like the best way to help people sometimes is to meet them where they're at. And sometimes that actually means being a distraction instead of being like, go to therapy, because not everyone's ready for therapy.
That reminds me of
You know?
the old Bob Newhart skit where someone would come in for therapy and they'd say, "Oh, I don't feel good about myself, and he just say, "Stop it, $5, please."
Yeah.
Eh, I
Yeah.
would love to have that sort of simple solution for everybody, including myself. But um, again, you can't just fix everything you come up with. Sometimes just that little distraction, or maybe a kind word, or a little boost, it isn't going to cost you much and could make a big turnaround in somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, especially when I feel like people from more business backgrounds may struggle with that too, because I feel like there's a kind of culture in the USA around success that it's like success is always fixing the problem.
Hmm.
But like sometimes success is actually making peace with the problem or understanding there's certain problems you can't necessarily solve, but you can live with it. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a lower quality of life or be unhappy. It just may mean adapting.
Mm. It also requires for other people to embrace empathy, which
Hmm.
isn't the most. eh, You don't see a whole lot of it these days with
Yeah.
a lot of folks, which is unfortunate. If not empathy, at least a little sympathy would be good. But empathy, at least you put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and try to figure out what you would do and what you would need, and that's very tough for some folks to get their head around. It seems.
Yeah, and I feel like we've entered an era where people are losing a lot of social skills, and I do feel like empathy is something that is modeled and taught.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have this next generation coming up and they never experience empathy, like they don't know how to give what they don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It's true, and the skills aren't developed. Um, Now that doesn't mean you don't have a good heart. You don't have a good
Yeah, yeah.
good want to. You just don't know how to you know use that to help other people. And I don't know, maybe your generation will be better than mine in getting that taken care of. But the that and it's hard to put into right word, and I like having the right words for things. So bear with me, folks. Um, that is an incredible quality that you have when I watched the stream the first time, was the fact that you were absolutely completely non-threatening in any possible way. A host that
That makes
was
me so happy.
really, it does, and being and someone that you want to just, okay, yeah, I want to hang around here and find out what's going on. That was absolutely one of the first things that I noticed. And I'm sure that the folks who come back do too. Uh, was that was that your aim when you first got started?
You know, I feel like that's part of who I am because I learned that
Mm-hmm.
in one of the hardest ways I think a human can. I sometimes feel like people end up being so good because they grew up with so much adversity
Mm-hmm.
that they know what it's like to not have that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up in a very safe environment and that actually very much cultivated me into being like I don't want to ever make anyone else feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always working on myself and making sure that like I'm bringing value and positivity to everything that I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a phrase I use a lot, and whether it's worth something or not, I don't know. But I always think that people aren't the product of their environments, but they are the triumph that emerges from those environments. Um,
Yes.
Sounds like you've embraced some triumph there.
Exactly. I feel like that's very much what life is about. I feel like initially, we're given a certain expectation of like how life is supposed to be, and we spend much of our life trying to get to certain expectations we have for ourselves and then fighting life.
Hmm.
And then at some point, we get to a point where we're like, okay, maybe I can't fight life, but I can still triumph
Hmm.
if I embrace it. And embracing it doesn't always mean like accepting it or letting things define you, but like transforming from it.
Hmm. Hmm. And embracing things like three-dimensional thinking. And some things aren't necessarily black and white. Some things aren't necessarily left to right, up
Yes.
down. That there may be other ways to do things. And again, I hope your generation does it better than mine, because we just kind of spit the bit out a few years ago. but
Aw.
but I can say this: it from my perspective, it doesn't necessarily get any easier when you're older. Um, it
Yes.
it definitely doesn't, but you do get the ability to look back a little on more than on experience than someone in say their 20s, because simply you've been here longer. So
Yeah, that's something that I've been learning.
mm,
I always kind of thought the first 20, 30 years of your life was like having the skills so that you can like cruise.
mhm,
But the older I get, the more I'm like, no, no, it doesn't necessarily get easier. You just get better at handling
mm,
hardship.
yeah, yeah, and the humans are incredibly adaptable when you get right down
Hmm.
to it. I mean, a person can live in a situation that gets gradually worse, and they just adapt to it until finally they're, you know, they could be stuck in one room with a door that goes outside, and that's where they live, and they don't even really notice what that's coming in, but they just adapt to it. Um, we can, well, I think folks are now hopefully starting to realize that they don't have to just accept that. They can, and I think that VTubing is allowing some folks to find out that there really is something on the other side of the planet. There are people out there who are interested in talking with you. That are people out there who want to hear you sing or watch your art or watch you get blown up in a video game or however. And the that super positive part of the internet is not only just therapeutic but really necessary for a lot of people.
Yes, I feel like that's something that VTubing taught me too. I came in very much with the mindset of like, if you do a big thing, then that's big value and that's big good for everyone. But VTubing taught me that like, you could do something small, like just speaking can make someone's day. Just being in someone else's presence can make a big difference in someone's day. I mean, if someone is alone and doesn't have friends, but they have this VTuber that they can go to and there's a community there, and no matter what their situation is in life, no matter how isolated they may feel, they have this one thing. Like it may seem small to you, but it can mean the world to someone else.
Absolutely. Never. I say it's all VTubers who might be listening, and we do have a lot of folks who come back and listen through these interviews. Don't underestimate. I mean, don't overestimate, but don't underestimate the what you're doing for somebody by just being on there, because you might be that safety spot for someone for that day that gets their mind off of something that
Mm-hmm.
that cheers them up. That even if you're there, you're in the background, you're that uh, pole that they're tethered to. There's a lot to be said for being there, um, and
Yes.
it's tough for me to see folks get frustrated with it, um, because
Yeah.
they don't see a lot of people viewing. But it might be 10 people or less, but those 10 people are still coming back for you.
Exactly. And I've actually spoken about this on social media before because in my timeline, I see from time to time like small VTubers who debuted 2 years ago comparing themselves to people who debuted yesterday and they already have like 10,000 followers and hundreds of people in their CCV.
Hmm.
And numbers, social media numbers, vanity metrics can be very deceiving.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
don't think that they fully capture the value that people bring. I've never shared this before to anyone publicly, but I want to share it just for the sake of inspiration.
mm,
Last year was a hard year for me in terms of health, and so I was less active and generating less numbers, and I started to question if what I was doing really had enough impact or if what I was doing was really meaningful enough.
mm,
And at one point, Meriwether Media reached out to me and wanted to work with me on a project. And the project didn't end up working out, but that was such an affirming moment for me because I thought, this year I'm not doing as well as I normally do because of health stuff. Like, man, I'm not meeting my own expectations.
Right.
Am I really helping people? But there were still people watching.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you feel like you're maybe even just a fraction of your normal capacity doesn't mean that your influence has gone down necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who those 10 people who are watching you are. One of them could be me or your Oshi or someone that means a lot to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or that could be like leading to a big opportunity. Not every really big good thing is going to have to come from some viral moment on social media. The small moments can do that too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And there's obviously there's some luck involved. Providence and luck
Yes,
is involved, but it doesn't happen if you're not out there. Um, they say about lottery,
exactly.
like you can't win if you don't play. About the lottery,
Mm-hmm.
it's not quite the same, but still. Um, but then again, too, don't force yourself if you're not feeling it, because the the chat, your regulars are going to know. And
Absolutely.
hearing somebody go through the one of the worst words for an entertainer to hear is competent. You you
Mm.
you did nothing wrong. You certainly did the show. Yeah, but do you remember anything from the show? No, but you didn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
You went through the motions, and you it certainly was a show. um,
Yeah.
People are going to pick up on that. That's a good and bad thing. It's good because they're invested enough in you to care. It's bad because you don't really want to put a bad foot forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're truly an influential VTuber or you care about your audience and you have that connection,
Hmm.
like they're going to be your accountability team pretty much.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a very good thing because I think otherwise we can get stuck in our own heads and how we analyze ourselves
Hmm.
and fall victim to our biases, both good and bad. We may overestimate when we shouldn't be doing that and underestimate when we shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And
Right.
that's, I think, the good side to doing a very social thing like VTubing
Hmm.
is that it's kind of self correcting. Social media can also be bad, of course, because sometimes drama happens and
Oh
things
yeah.
get augmented out of proportion. But
Yeah. It,
in general, I actually think there's a lot of good on the internet. It's just that stuff doesn't always rank at the top of your timeline, so you don't necessarily know that.
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I want to know something else here about your streams. I see
Hmm.
that you've been doing quite a few ASMR type streams. You
Hmm.
you absolutely have the voice for it, and the cadence and all that for it. Is ASMR something that has helped you, and you want to do it for other people, or did you just kind of fall into it?
When I first started VTubing, I mostly did just chatting and ASMR actually.
Hmm.
I did gaming on occasion, but it was very talk focused.
Hmm.
Back to that like fear of kind of public speaking and socializing, but wanting to like nail that and connect with people.
Right.
So there is a component of like I'm going back to my roots and just enjoying it in a more present and personal way.
Hmm.
At the same time, mental health has always mattered to me a lot. And I've tried to always think of ways that my content can, yes, be entertaining, but also be good for the mind.
Right.
And ASMR is helpful for sleep, for stress relief. Some people like to play it in the background when they study. It helps keep them focused or even accountable.
Hmm.
So I always try to like merge that love of like keeping it fun, yes, but if I can have it be functional too, even better.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, and I worked all sorts of shifts in my old radio job, and my sleep schedule is completely gone. There is no circadian clock. There's just there's just a bunch of gears where that used to be when I smashed it. Uh, but sometimes I'll have three or four different things on when I'm trying to sleep. It does
Yeah,
help some people quite a bit, and so it gives some people just to relax as well. But when you're doing it does it relax you at the same time?
It does, but when it doesn't, it actually energizes me so much that I accidentally fall out of like the speaking softly kind of in an ASMR it's best if you're speaking in a really soft way to keep the soothing nature.
Right.
But when chat gets passionate enough about a topic or like hits something I'm really interested in, I go into normal talking mode because I'm so excited, I get energized. So I've been trying to work on that.
It reminds me of back in high school, we had a fellow in our marching band who would they would our band at the time was terrible, and they knew it. They much better 100 years
Oh,
later now, but they would the Star Spangled Banner was always interesting, and he would lose his place in the Star Spangled and get kind of caught up in it. He played the cymbals, so all of a
oh.
sudden he would just take off on his own, just and the band would pick up speed.
Oh my god.
And
That's amazing.
the end of the song was much faster than the beginning. So
So be really hyper by the end.
yes, they kind of spit the bit and just played as fast as they could the rest of the way.
Super Star Spangled Banner.
It was everybody would just shake their head and okay, get on with the game. But
That's so fun.
really, that's kind of what I would imagine happens with ASMR too. Is that you get kind of caught up and then suddenly that beat goes a little faster. Like yeah,
Yes, for sure.
but it's really what I've heard from you is excellent as far as that. In fact, I don't know if I've heard anything that I don't like, and that includes music. So, have you always been somebody who's been interested in music?
Absolutely. Although it was funny because when I first started playing piano in elementary school, I would like play it and like know it and then I'd forget and then I'd relearn and then I'd forget. And that's always been a thing with me with music for some strange reason
Yeah.
until I moved over to digital music production.
Mm-hmm.
Something about it being fully digital makes it really accessible for me and my brain.
Mm. Yeah, it does change it up a little bit. I imagine that it 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 turns it into a video game in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like editing for me on these programs. It's like look, there's the place where I coughed, and I check it off before I go. But it does change it up a little bit. It also allows you to do a lot of different things. You have a recording here not that long ago of an original composition. Um, how did you come out about that, and how do you go about creating something like that?
Ooh. Sometimes I feel like I have a radio station playing in my head 24/7,
Mm,
and I kind of tune into that,
you know.
and I hear those notes in my head, and I can just kind of export it to the computer.
Mm.
But sometimes that radio station isn't playing, and when that happens, I feel like I have to do it like the normal human way. And I like to start from inspiration. I like the Legend of Zelda game soundtracks from throughout the years. I like Studio Ghibli
Hmm.
a lot.
Right.
I may reference modern music if that's my intention.
Yeah.
And then that usually kind of like activates that little radio station in my head, at least a little bit. And I
Mm.
kind of feel like it's a collaboration between me really knowing like the subject matter of the kind of genre I'm trying to produce, like a little bit of music theory, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
And then that musical side of my brain that's just always creating things for some strange reason and merging that together.
Cool. Storm Siren, is that what I think it is?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's on the regular YouTube channel. By the way, Leela has like 85 different YouTube channels to check out.
It's true.
Gathering your links took like 2 hours, but there's a card there too, a card so you can check it out. And also, but the my radio station in my head is yelling in a language I don't understand, and there's like something bouncing in the corner. I don't know what's going on. That's kind of I can ignore my radio station. The
It's a little party in there.
It is. It's a party in there, and I wish it would let me sleep. Uh, the the fact is now that you've got this creative outlet, you are using it to. don't know if I can't say that you've maximized it yet, but you certainly it seem like you're expanding yourself with this. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with if you didn't have this, where would Leela be at this point if you hadn't started?
Oh boy. That's the thing. I feel like I'd be so lost without the medium.
Mm.
I mean, I might have started a YouTube channel, but from a IRL perspective, like just me as a human
Mm-hmm.
sharing things. But without the community aspect, I don't I don't know if I would have made it this far. I've always had this conflict where growing up I had so many creative skills at the same time. I loved writing and drawing and video editing and music production, and I always struggled with career stuff, for example, because there's no job that's like, do 10 things at the same time. That's what we want. They're always like, we want you to do this one thing and be really good at it. And
Yeah.
I always felt like in those kinds of jobs, I was like, but I know I can do 9 other things. And VTubing is the first job where it's like, no, yeah, please give us everything. That's exactly what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to fulfill those aspirations this way on your own terms.
Yes. I need that personally.
Mm. There's a big difference there. You're not really waiting for somebody else to give you the opportunity. You're taking the bull by the horns.
Exactly. I feel like with the way the world is changing, we're slowly but surely kind of pushing people in a way to do that, to like not wait for opportunities, but to create them for yourself. And initially, that can be very stressful and confusing because it's like, it's so much easier to follow a template. It's
Mm.
so much easier to be told, do this and you'll be fine. Making something all your own requires confidence and really knowing yourself and being willing to be vulnerable and to do those things you're afraid of and to see what happens and to not necessarily be super connected to the outcome because you don't always know what's going to happen or sometimes you fail, but you have to be at peace with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that in the future, people being able to do what they are passionate about versus what they're pressured to do, I think in the long term, people are going to be much happier with that.
Oh, I think so too. I think so too. Has what you've been able to do on the internet, has that translated into Leela's life away from the computer?
Oh, honestly, everything's changed. The relationship I have with my family,
Mm-hmm.
my health. In fact, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to health metrics.
Mm.
And when I first started VTubing, I had a metabolic age of almost 35. Now I have a metabolic age of 25.
Oh,
So, as far as health is concerned, like mentally, emotionally, physically, huge change.
mm,
My skills have improved a lot because VTubing is kind of like a public accountability.
right,
Like a lot of people go to groups every week or month and they share something they've done with other people in the same industry and they kind of hold people accountable through
right.
that model. And VTubing is like that, but international. So it's kind of like even more accountability because
It,
it's like when you have 30,000 plus people waiting for your next video, it makes procrastinating a little bit harder.
yes, yes, it does.
I don't want to let them down.
Yeah, it does make it a little bit, but the pressure is also there too,
Yes.
to deal with. So your interpersonal relationships have gotten better. Have you been able to be a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
more, if you with people in situations where you don't know them, are you better able to communicate with them?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Because of the way that I grew up, I was very sheltered. You can kind of call me the real life Rapunzel. Like, I didn't have access to the outside world very much until I was pretty much 18.
mm,
And that really stunted my social skills. And that's also why VTubing was like so instrumental with improving the social skills. But that also, of course, translates to relationships. Like, when I first started, I was so shy and not used to talking about myself.
mm-hmm.
I was so used to kind of being the problem solver that helped other people all the time.
Right.
So now I can really talk about me and have that vocabulary and not feel selfish for talking about myself.
Yeah.
And that actually makes it easier to connect with people too, because you can be a problem solver, but like that's not really what relationships are built on.
Right.
Like that can be a little transactional even.
Hmm.
People want to know like your human side, but that requires being personal. And so I feel like more human in a way and less robotic. And so like when I talk to my family, I'm more open with like my struggles. Whereas before I would have been like, well, if I tell them my problems, I already know they have their own problems. And like maybe then I'm stressing them out and I don't want to do that.
Right. Right. You get in
So
that
I was,
you get in that kind of spiral away from what you really need.
yes, I was so used to optimizing everything in like a business way that I was bringing the optimization into my relationships and trying to optimize for like health and happiness and stuff. But like my standard of that, which optimizing makes sense in a career. When you try to optimize humans, it doesn't work.
It's like optimizing Windows Vista. Don't try.
Yeah,
It ain't
yeah.
gonna
Oh my
work
God.
no matter what you try. But to hear you now and hear how relaxed you are and hear your how you interact with the people online, no one possibly in their right mind could have guessed that you've gone through all of that because
Yeah.
how generally calm and um, and generally calm your demeanor is and how you react to folks online. I would have never have guessed that you'd gone
Yeah.
through that. And so the transformation for you must be awe-inspiring for yourself.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I very much feel like, in a way, every person that I've met along this journey, every little impact, every experience, positive, negative, has informed who I am right now. And I almost feel, in a way, like VTubing has given me the best version of myself when I couldn't do that on my own.
Mm. But you still
And it
did.
feels like such a gift every day, like to wake up to this version of me and to be this version of me.
Yeah. I-
And that's why I'm always grateful.
Yeah. I agree with you, except you still did do this on your own. I mean,
And that's true.
you went out
Yeah.
and again and grabbed the bull by the horns and tied it up in a nice little bow, and then maybe you did a little dance over it. I don't know. You could do whatever you want with it. It's your bowl at that point. But it really does seem like this particular outlet was absolutely perfect for you at the right time, and you are also right for this particular outlet. Um, and I am just pleased as punch to be able to get to talk to you and find out a little bit more about Leela. Um, Folks, you got to check out what Leela's got going on. Not just music, not just ASMR, but you've heard just a little bit in what we've talked about, a little bit of how it comes over when Leela's on streaming. Um, Absolutely deserving of all your support. Please check out what Leela's got going on. We'll have all the links that we've been able to find in the description. You can even find Leela on your toaster if you put the right setting on it.
I am the storm that is approaching.
That's right. No matter what you built in Fortnite, you're going to die. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for coming on. Just an absolute pleasure. And please come back on again soon, okay?
Thank you, Eric, and I'd love that anytime.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.